Welcome back to Software Without Borders. I'm Andy Hilliard, CEO of Accelerance.
And I'm Olivier Poulard, Managing Director of Software Strategies at Accelerance. Today, we're delighted to have Rose Schamberger join us. Rose, technology and product leader with over 2 decades of experience in driving transformation and innovation. Very, very glad to have you.
Yeah, Rose, you got a really unique background, and we'll go a little bit into that from, professional volleyball player to becoming a technology executive. I mean, we all have our unique journeys, and that's going to be exciting to explore. You're passionate about high impact leadership and sort of creating environments where innovation thrives. So, hey, Rose, welcome to the show.
Yeah, so thank you, Andy and Olivier, for having me. It's a pleasure. I am very excited, a little anxious, but very excited. And I love that I can talk to you guys about the things that I love the most, which is creating better products, growing engineering teams, leadership, and my transition from volleyball to technology.
Yeah, just what you just said about talking things that really motivate you. Our daily lives, we're so busy just doing things, doing tasks, checking boxes and stuff. And to just, take the time out periodically, once a day if possible, but like in a venue like this, to just talk with other people and to, reflect and to think about what motivates you, what energizes you, and how you can apply your experiences and maybe help others that are listening. That's the purpose of the show, and we don't get enough opportunities to do this. So I kind of want to start off going back to the journey question. So talking about the transition from a professional volleyball player to a highly accomplished technology executive. So what key lessons or skills did you take away from your athletic career, and how have you applied them to leadership?
I honestly think I learned more about leadership playing volleyball. And then obviously you don't know that you are learning this. It's when you reflect back on how you apply things. But playing as a team, winning as one, losing as one, resilience, going through hard times where you cannot figure it out how to get out of that situation when you are losing, but knowing that you can always practice and get better. So all those lessons came from doing on the job, which my job was playing volleyball. And when I think about that type of environment, competitive, there is always an adversary. You're always trying to get better every single day. Technology to me is the same. You can never feel like satisfied. Oh, I did the best product ever. Now I can stop practicing. So it's a constant growth and a constant trying to get better, and always with an eye on your adversary so you can prepare yourself for the game.
For sure. Can you describe a little bit about your volleyball experience or your career? Like, tell me where, what?
So I was born in Brazil and I grew up in Brazil. So I started playing volleyball when I was 13. And I'm not going to say how many years ago because Olivier already gave away that I have 20 years of experience. So you guys can already do the math. But it's been a long time. So I started playing. I fall in love with, I've always played sports, but I fell in love with volleyball. The dynamic of the game, the friendships, the challenges, the learning, the evolution. And then when I was in my 17s, I had the opportunity to play professional while I was going to college until 22, 23. And then after that, I got into a crossroad where I'm like, I can do this for another 15 years. Volleyball allows you to go a little bit older than other contact sports. Or I can figure it out what I would like to work with and transition. And I have always been in love with science, problem solving, math, and sports. So that's when I moved into my technology career.
I agree that especially people growing up as athletes and competitive athletes. I mean, I played Division One college ice hockey, and I had a choice to make. Whether or not to go full pro and to take that journey. My son played in the MLS and for the LA Galaxy. He played there for 3 years, and he too sort of reaches a decision point. We can't be young and we can't play all the time for the rest of our lives. So we know that there is a large segment of our career after that. And you have to decide exactly what is the right moment or point to invest your energy and your commitment, and how does the rest of your life hypothetically you want that to play out, and so how does all of that play into it. But regardless of whether you make a major transition or not, we appreciate and we take key learnings from the experiences that we had, especially in sports, especially when you have to work as a team and to collaborate, and to just make sure the right person is in the right role, and then how you perform individually but also collectively as a team, knowing that the end in mind is the goal, the scoreboard, and you have to keep that in mind too. And so there's just constant reflection and reinforcement of an athletic career and how it applies to the dynamics of business, which business is a team sport too, right?
I 100% agree. And the biggest lesson, besides the leadership lesson, is the idea of how you make better teams, right? You leverage the strengths of each other and you mask the weaknesses in different ways. Not that you hide them, but you try to protect them against the adversary. And then you're always looking into what are your strengths? How I can take more of that, how I can get it even better and compensate this. So putting together a team, it's very fun. And when you put in the mindset of the positions that each person plays in the volleyball or hockey or whatever sports it is.
Absolutely, absolutely. Look, I got to be careful because I'm going down a really deep rabbit hole. I could be talking for an hour, and we would ask you anything about software development. So I'm going to pull myself out of that. So let me ask you another developmental sort of evolutionary question. So throughout your career, you've demonstrated a strong ability to drive change and transformation. That's sort of like what you brand yourself as. What motivates you as a change leader and what do you consider to be the sort of the most important elements for successfully leading digital transformation?
So I am deeply motivated by progress and growth. I don't like the static mindset or things are the way things are. I think they can always get better. So that to me, it's very important. And a lot of times what I see is that, especially on engineering teams, they like complexity too much sometimes. And they lack the clarity of why we are doing something. What is the vision for that? So I think any digital transformation, it starts with a clear vision, not what you're going to do, but why are you doing this? Then which problem you are trying to solve. Then you create empowered teams and then a relentless pursuit of improvement and then keep going and continues on that. So I don't see change as a 180, a flip. I see change as a continuous day to day that you understand where you're going. It's a journey. So the change is the journey. And then the destination are moments in time where you celebrate parts of that journey, but you never stop.
Yeah, transformation may result in what appears to be a flip, but it doesn't start that way.
No, it doesn't.
And what I've seen in the past, of course, through a good number of years also of software experience, is that people focus too much on the technology and not so much on the product. And I know that you've consistently delivered innovative products and with amazing results for a number of organizations. Could you elaborate on your approach to product development and how actually and what you found most effective in driving successful product outcomes?
I would say that 9 out of 10 times you have a customer telling you, can you build this feature? Can you build this? Can you do that? And then you have to take a step back and ask them, which problem you're trying to solve? So what is the problem, either service or product, whatever it is that this product is going to address? So if you understand the why you are doing this, then it's much easier for you to start understanding the what and what you're solving for. Then you go to the how. We start a lot of times with the how. I'm going to do this, and you don't even know how people are going to use that. So understanding how your customer are going to, why they want that, but how they're going to use that will allow you to create a product that solves their problems much better than if you just do what they were thinking was what they want. And together with that, I like to use a lot of the Agile, what some can say framework. I like to say mindset, because I don't always apply all the items of the framework, but the mindset is there. So you are focused on which problem you are trying to solve, how you're trying to solve, and engaging feedback loops that allow you to constantly be in touch with the ideation and make sure that you are not deviating from what they actually need, and also allowing yourself to steer quickly and not get something that they are not really going to use.
And I completely agree. Agile is not just a methodology, it's actually a mindset. I've seen a lot of so-called agile teams with a waterfall mindset.
Yeah,
Needless to say
me
that
too.
that didn't work so well, quite frankly. But I've seen also people, using a waterfall, some kind of a waterfall with iterations, and a very agile mindset, and still be very successful. So the mindset to me is everything as far as I'm
Exactly.
concerned. Yeah.
I mean, you guys sound like you're separated at birth. I've been working with Olivier for 2 years now, and you almost said verbatim what Olivier says over and over again, and that's I guess great minds think alike.
Yeah, and I had experience with when I was at Sure with systems engineering, and especially when you have companies that develop very complex hardware products, it is not easy to implement the framework of Agile, but it's very helpful to have the mindset, Agile mindset, where you have regular feedback loops, you have the continuous improvement idea, you are doing CI/CD pipeline. So having that mindset helps you to increase the speed and keep the quality.
And being willing to fail fast and get the feedback and recover fast as well. So
Do you find you get pushback on from your stakeholders or your clients in regards to them wanting to get to the how, and getting irritated why you bring them back to the why and the what? Is there any alignment? What secrets do you do to keep?
I think you have to listen to them. And the most important part here is when they tell you the how, you ask why. But why this way? Have you thought about? So it's not I am not taking the how away from them. It might be that at the end of the day, we're going to do exactly how they asked. But to do a better job, I need to understand the motivation behind that. Because sometimes you can finish a product and then you have 3 steps to do something, and then that is the core workflow for the customer, which you could have done in 1 step.
and the motivation is not yours, by the way. The motivation, the why has to motivate the engineering team as well. If they do understand why things are done a certain way or should be done a certain way, then their motivation is multiplied, obviously.
Olivier, I agree 1,000% with you. I have had engagement surveys where I have turned around team engagement just by explaining them why we are doing something. Because as you mentioned in the beginning, engineers are focused on the optimal engineering solution from an engineering perspective. This is the best technology, or this is the best tech stack. And not with, but when you align this, like, we're not going to use this for many reasons. It can be budget. It can be because it doesn't apply. It can be because you already have 50% developed, so you're not going to start again. But you explain them the why. You eliminate a lot of the barriers, the resistance to not do the perfect engineering work, but to do the perfect product for the customer.
That's right.
So 100% agree. Actually, 1,000%.
Okay, so yeah, Agile is a great way, to me, is a great way to implement new products, but it's also a great way to transform existing products, right? And I think that understanding why certain things are done in the existing product is also important.
Yes. You have to, in technology, you don't have just one way of solving a problem, right? So I can give an example of two cloud transformations that I did, one at my previous company, the other one at the company before. For one, for the previous company, the technology, they were both monoliths, they were both on-prem, and they were not cloud native products, right? So you have to figure it out how you're going to bring that into the cloud and still be efficient, cost effective, and performant and scale. For one, the solution was, we're going to break down the monolith, we're going to create microservices, and we're going to bring piece by piece. The technology allowed us to do that. The type of product allows us to do that. And the customer allowed us to do that. On my recent job, there was a barrier to do that because our customers were in too many different versions. And we would have to enable all of them to be at the cloud because of all the benefits that would bring. But we couldn't just simply, we're going to break this down into a monolith. So the same problem, a different customer perspective and a different customer usage, and then you have different outcomes, but you could solve the problem in both ways. You were able to move from on-prem to the cloud.
Very interesting. I wanted to switch gears real quick, and that is, we came out with a new book just recently. By the way, anyone who's listening can go to the site and get access to it and download it. It's called The True Cost of Software Development. And Rose, you contributed to one of the 16 chapters, and essentially the ebook is about all the contributing factors that either add or subtract value to software engineering that don't necessarily have to revolve around price points, because a lot of people are looking at lowest cost provider of promises. And there's so many other attributes to the SDLC and the people and the organization and how you add or subtract value to that initiative. And in the chapter that you contributed to, Rose, you advocated for a customer-centric approach to software development. And I'd like to have you verbalize for the audience sort of what are the key principles of customer-centric development, and why is it essential for organizations to prioritize customer feedback throughout this development process?
To me, customer-centric, it starts with empathy and understanding the vision. If you have those two things, you become less of a doer and more, you move yourself from the back of the bus to the front of the bus. If you understand the vision and you understand what problem is being solved, you can become a partner. And partnerships are much stronger than transactional relationships. So you create this partnership with your customer, And you are listening to them, you are learning from them, and you are evolving with them. At the end of the day, what do you want? I would think what one wants is customer adoption. And if you may have the best product or the most differentiated product, but it's too hard to use for that audience, or it's not aligned with the goals. It doesn't achieve the goals that the customer wants. So if you have the most elegant code algorithm behind that, but the customer doesn't use, it's meaningless. And I am in favor to make sure that we are satisfying the customer, because that's how you're going to be able to continue to grow. And there is nothing better than a customer that is willing to advocate for you, right? They are like, hey, have you worked with Andy? He's great. He's a partner. He's not a salesperson. He's partnering with you to bring the best product that he can bring to the market and then help you grow. So that's why I think being customer-centric helps you. It reduces a lot of the waste, enables you to learn through their feedback. And that's another place where I think the Agile mindset helps, which is this constant feedback loop of listening and demonstrating to them your progress. So you establish trust and partnership.
I often use the overused phrase of going slow to go fast. And you mentioned that relationships and are often built in a very transactional, binary way. Engineers in general, males in general, I think, and engineers
Engineers.
more so, they just want to get stuff done. So how do you not only take the time to gain this team-based customer centricity approach to how you're going to work together and deliver software together, but also how to maintain that as a top of mind guiding post so that it remains relevant throughout the entire process. Because I think males and engineers tend, or just engineers in general, tend to default to, yeah, that was a nice kumbaya moment, but let's just get stuff done, and they start to lose track of the customer centricity for the sake of getting stuff done or writing elegant code that doesn't get utilized or appreciated. So how do you maintain that centricity?
I think that there's two ways. You cannot be looking at your own belly button, right? Like you have to be looking at the customer. So depending on the capabilities you have, and now with remote work, everybody's spread out, it might not be as simple as it was in the past when everybody was in the same place. But I am a firm believer on send your engineering team to the field, whatever field it is. You are developing a mobile app. Hey, you're going to have to use this mobile app. Give to your kids. When I work at Motorola, I would bring prototypes, nothing NGA related, but I would bring prototypes and I'm like, hey, play with this message. They were like, I can't send a text message with this. And I'm like, okay, then it's not good enough, right? So you have this feedback from the customer. The second one is what we call eat your own dog food. Don't test based on your design. Just because your design says you have to do A, B, and C, then you test as an engineer. Test as a customer. You want to buy something, go to a website and play around. What annoys you? What makes you not buy? So think like a consumer or a customer and keep going with that while you're doing the development, because this is what it's going to bring, that essence of the customer centricity. You're not doing this for your fellow engineer. You're not in a contest which who has the best algorithm. And of course, you can have IP on that, but you are in that to think like a consumer, like a user, an end user.
Completely agree with that. And I'll add a couple of things to this. I had two key moments in my professional life that made a huge impact on my approach and mindset to software engineering. The first one was when, as a young engineer, I was asked for a week to sit at the desk of a technical support person. So now you can imagine, an engineer, what do? You engineer stuff. You don't answer phone calls and try to answer, clients with their problems, little and big, etc. But I can tell you during that week, that's when I realized that, well, one, we do things that don't make any sense. Two, that are not necessarily as easy as we think to use, right? So it's always, on the blueprint, even if, and we were very, very good at testing stuff, at looking at it from a very critical point of view, does it make sense? Is it easy to use? But until you actually listen to an end user, a customer, it's very difficult to actually determine what makes sense or not, understanding the why part of it, right? Because, okay, we see the how, okay, that's pretty easy. We see the what, that's the easiest one. But the why is important. The second key moment during my time was several years after that, where, again, more senior engineer and on the management side, and our people, it was at the time where we had to deploy manually on site at train stations, by the way. All right. Piece of software, train stations. So I was in New Jersey. I went from one train station to another to deploy the software on the terminals. It was in the winter, snow everywhere, etc., and nobody was available due to the weather. Some people were stuck, etc. So anyway, so I had to do it myself, and that's when you realize how sometimes complicated, deployments can be. So then you start thinking, okay, not just from a user. The end user in this case is, if you think about it, is the person who's going to implement the software, who's going to deploy the software. And that should be part of your requirements. That should be part of your thought process. So when we think about user experience, who's the user, by the way?
Yeah. At what stage in the process? Yeah.
In the
That's right.
customer journey,
Yeah.
which stage are you the person that it's going to implement? Are you going to be the person that it's going to maintain? Are you going to be the person that's going to use on a day-to-day? Olivier,
right.
your experience is great. I also spent, I think, 2 days at a T-Mobile call center when I was working for Motorola. Those were 2 very eye-opening and hard days.
Yeah.
Humbling, very humbling, because things that we are like, okay, people can get over. Well, sometimes not. And sometimes they're doing critical functions. I don't know. It's the first time that they're talking to someone that they haven't talked in a month. The call gets disconnected. It's horrible. You can think like, oh, you can call again. Maybe you can't. Maybe that person is in a war area or whatever. But making it easier for the customer has to be the paramount of any product.
I mean, is it the product owner and the product manager who sort of make sure that people on the development team can experience the customer journey or the various customers along that journey, and then make sure that these experiences and understandings and appreciations are aggregated for the benefit of the team and are commonly understood and felt, so that the team can then develop in coordination with the similar experiential mindset. Like how does that all get standardized and shared?
I like to think that to move engineers from consumers of product requirements to producers or co-authors of that, they have to understand the why and they have to experience for themselves. It is too much responsibility for one person. And when you think about the agile mindset, you have the roles, but there's nothing saying that the role has to be performed by different people, right? You have the scrum master. An engineer can be a scrum master, a product owner can be a scrum master, but an engineer can be a product owner also. He or she can have the mindset of a product owner. It doesn't mean that they are going to be doing the work for the product owner, but they're thinking and helping and not saying like, hey, You tell me what to do, and then I am going to do. They collaborate on and exchange ideas.
And in fact, that's a very, very good point. The best teams I've had the pleasure to lead were the teams where people could put themselves in someone else's shoes,
Yes.
especially the architects.
Especially the architects.
Especially
Exactly.
the architects, right?
Yeah.
So, it's very, very easy to come up with something that is not testable. Okay, put yourself in the shoes of a tester. It's very easy to architect or engineer something or design something that is extremely complex to code. So maybe with the advent of AI now, I mean, not the advent, but the more the advances of AI, those complex things would become very, very simple. But again, then we need to think about who's going to maintain the software, because something that is complex from the get-go becomes very complex to maintain and support anyway. So, until they can put themselves in the shoes of the person who's going to support it, who's going to deploy it, who's going to test it, who's going to program it, etc. And I'm not trying to target only, of course, architects, but it's where things start, obviously.
But I guess my question also gets back to how do you make those experiences, those individual experiences of being in someone else's shoes, how do you make that consistent? Because I know there's a parable out there, I can't remember, but it's like three blind people experiencing maybe an elephant or something. I can't remember, but they all come away with completely different individual experiences, and they think the why is different for each of them, but the moment is the same, but they're blind, so they're all like they have different perceptions. So how do you make sure that that's consistent?
I would go back to the agile mindset and make sure that everything that you measure has a purpose to be measured, and then has a feedback loop, right? The architect won't know the complexity of what he's thinking in relation of the whole software until someone tells him or her. So having those team dynamics and opportunities for feedback loops and for learning through the cycle and understanding how this is going to be, I think it's critical. And then the other thing is always thinking ahead. You're doing this today. Imagine that tomorrow it's not you that you're going to be maintaining that code. Or put this in a different perspective. Do you want to be maintaining this code the rest of your life? If not, make it easy for knowledge transfer. Because if it's not easy for a knowledge transfer, we're going to be calling you every day. And that happens, right? So it's a dynamic that you have to create in your organization in terms of constant feedback loop and understanding of how you evolve from there, and what the other person that it's going to be on the receiving end understands. So that is what I always incentive in my teams. And that works for me also, especially when I'm asking for dates. Why cannot be tomorrow? I have to listen. I have to listen, and I have to learn from them, right? And I have to understand the risks.
So I'd like to switch to a subject that you and I are really passionate about, and that's modernizing software products. And there are tons of software products out there that need modernizing, right? So I know you've successfully modernized products and aligned global teams in your previous roles. What strategies have you found most effective in managing those global teams and ensuring alignment across diverse stakeholders? That's the key, I think.
One, managing global teams, managing different cultures, it's a passion of mine. I love to learn about other cultures, other countries, and how their work dynamic can be leveraged to improve the way that someone else the way someone else works, right? So I am passionate about that. You guys are going to have to cut me off when if I go over time. But the best way I've seen it starts with communication, good communication, and communication is a two-way road. So it's not only talking, but listening a lot to them. And culture. You have to understand their culture. You have to understand some cultures they speak more aggressively. My husband makes fun of me because I speak with my hands, but I am Brazilian. That's what we do, right? So you have to understand the culture and then absorb that into the communication patterns and adjust your communication to that, the listening and the talking. The second part to me is to make sure the global teams, each one has their own responsibility and accountability. Otherwise, you create a game of, well, I thought someone else would be delivering, not me. So you have to create, even though they still have dependencies among themselves, you have to create strong accountability verticals for each of those groups. And then the third pillar for me, it's you decentralize decision making. You cannot be sleeping and then having someone hold back because you're not awake and then that person needs an answer. So decentralize decision making, but centralize vision, purpose, and processes. So clear processes, clear purpose, and clear vision. And I think that it's always going to be difficult because there are days that you have to wake up at 5 a.m. to talk to someone or go to bed at midnight. It's not going to be easy, but it's rewarding. It is really so much worth.
So, with this in mind, you've always focused on improving performance of your systems, obviously, and reducing cycle times or delivery cycle times, I would say. Can you share some specific examples of how you've leveraged cloud? I know that you're a big cloud proponent, cloud technologies, and specifically CI/CD automation to achieve those results.
So I think that the best experiences I had in all my companies, in all the companies that I worked for, they are not mine, but they are worked for. There are areas where you can clearly identify some areas of improvement and repetitive things that will be happening that you can just move forward, especially leveraging cloud. To me, the biggest benefits of implementing a solid cloud architecture and processes comes from automating and having an easily audible system that can help you from the beginning to the customer point, to the customer touch point. And you can always go back with that. So implementing good CI/CD pipelines, depending on the technology, depending if I have a monolith or if I have a microservice, so you have to adjust to that, creates a process where you clearly understand the touch points. You clearly can go back and see where something broke, because a lot of times we spend too much time trying to find when something broke because you don't have the right processes in place. And cloud can make things touchless to a certain point, right? And make the team focus more on the other tasks that they have to do, that they are not repeatable. They're new things that they are developing or they are problems that they are solving. So a very good and structured CI/CD can save you time, improve quality, improve your speed, and make you highly secure and more audible.
And at least not waste time, because the cloud is so flexible and so configurable and so everything, right? It can become a mess very, very, very quickly if you don't have the right processes, the right governance, all this in place. It doesn't mean that you have to be extremely stringent on everything, but you have to have a minimum of governance and ways of working together. One person alone, that's easy. He or she knows, what's happening. That's their realm. But when you have a team, a whole team, dev and ops, DevOps, then it becomes a different problem.
And when you have a global team for that, right? Like you cannot have a process that allows you to break the build at 5 p.m. in US and then, hey, good night, I'm going to bed. And then India wakes up and then they cannot do work. You wasted 12 hours. And then, or Europe, whoever it is that it's taking over. So having strong processes, strong CI/CD automation is very critical if you want to work distributed.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's typically when you start integrating things together that things start blowing up anyway. So, yeah.
You'll notice on our podcast that we continually move from the perspective of the customer and the end user to the perspective of the development team and how the development team delivers on those experiences. So I'm going to swing all the way back to the customer centricity and customer satisfaction as sort of a fundamental pillar that influences the cost efficiency of development and the creation of tangible value. So can you elaborate a little bit more on this connection and explaining how prioritizing customer satisfaction can actually lead to significant ROI for organizations?
Customer satisfaction is not just a feel good metric, right? Like it's not, it can help your ego, but it has to be there because I always try to explain like business to my team in a very high level. We make more money, we have more money for us. We make less money, we have less money for us, right? So the more customers we have that are satisfied with our products and are using our products, the more advocates we have, less churn, more adoption, higher retention. The numbers keep changing, but it's in average 5 times more expensive to acquire a customer than to keep a customer. So if you already have that customer, keep him happy, keep him satisfied. Happiness is another story, but keep him satisfied. Make sure that what we are delivering is helping him solve that problem that he had at the beginning of the conversation, because this is going to make sure that he stays with us, that he brings other customers, that he doesn't, that he buys more from us. You may say you have 10 features, he just adopted 5. If all those 5 are working so well for them, it is quite possible that you can bring a 6th one to him and then they're going to say like, yeah, let's try this, right? So you can even improve your return on investment with just that customer. They're going to be less prone to negotiate prices because they are seeing the value. And people confuse price with value. Price is a monetary construct. Value is how much you're solving their problem. And of course, they have to be able to afford. But the more you focus on the customer, the least amount of concerns you have with churn, acquiring new customers, and impact on retention of your user base.
There's only so much you can control and so much you can't control. Engineering is developing what is on the product roadmap that is owned by the product manager and facilitated by the product owner. And then you have other stakeholders in the organization that are looking at their target audience and wanting to build features and products that make them adopt more and faster so that it delivers more revenue that ultimately flows down through the organization to engineering. And so I'm sort of wondering, with the engineering, having a customer-centric approach and delivering according to what other functions and areas in the organization is determining what the direction is and what the budget is and how they need to approach the marketplace. Is there any need for connection or alignment across the organization that goes beyond the silos that get created, even though you're all acting on the customer's best behalf, but you also rely on the rest of the organization to give good direction and to deliver good value to the customer.
We need to have cross-functional metrics that measure both teams together and measure the results. So in this case, it's customer adoption. From the engineering perspective, of course, we need cycle time, we need quality metrics, we need delivery efficiencies and things like that, right? And then as a combine between product and engineering, we need CSAT and customer adoption. If the customer is not adopting, doesn't mean that it's a bad feature, doesn't mean that we failed at the development, but we definitely didn't invest our money on the best area that could provide us a return. So that goes back to the return on the investment. So we need to have some of those metrics that are going to be joint measured, that enables both teams to take responsibility for the end result and work together to, okay, why they didn't use. It could be that they didn't use because it was too complex. Then let's simplify. It could be that that feature wasn't really what they were looking for. Then let's look back at the requirements. So depending on the root cause of the lack of usage, both teams have to get together and together solve that problem.
Do you, as a technology leader, I know you have a lot of experience, but do you advocate a specific way in which to align across functions in the organization and to maintain that alignment so that people are everyone's customer-centric and everyone agrees? You have radical candor and debate, but then you reach an agreement based on a decision that is typically flows down, and everyone moves forward with and maintaining alignment. Is there better or worse ways to do that?
I've seen good ways of doing this with OKRs or quarterly interlocks, where, let me give an example. One may think that creation of pipeline is a pure marketing function, right? But to create pipeline, they have to convince our customers that we do have a very good value proposition. That value proposition comes from the product. And if their research into the pipeline is showing that, hey, our pipeline is drying because our customers are seeing better value proposition in other products, marketing and product have to be together. Marketing, product, and engineering have to come together and revise that. So there was a process that we have used in the past where even those on the surface, very specific KPIs per functional area would come together, and then we would bow out and see the root cause if they're not going the right direction. So we can help each other adjust that. But at the end of the day, everybody needs to be thinking about the customer. And I've seen it's more common than not that engineering feels like they can be away from the customers because they're just doing their thing here. I disagree with that. I think, especially because they're the ones building the product, they have to be as customer-centric as everybody else. They may not have to talk to the customer every day, but they have to be customer-centric.
Okay. So maybe one last question. So looking ahead, what do you think the most significant trends or challenges for the future of technology and product leadership? What do you see?
So I see a couple things coming. One is this, for lack of a better word, obsession with AI, which AI has existed for the longest time. Gen AI is recent. but AI, machine learning have existed for the longest time. AI doesn't replace thinking, at least not yet. And leaders have to understand the business problems that they are trying to solve. Just saying like, hey, I have AI tools, I have the most AI tools, to me, it's just a empty promise, because how do you know my problem and how you're going to solve my problem? So we have to be very conscious about, especially for people outside of technology, the value of AI. It's there. It's a tool. It's a very important tool in our toolbox, but it's not the solution for every single problem. So this open mind has to exist there. And because we are transitioning into a more it feels like everyone wants the easy pill that it's going to solve your problem. Oh, I take this for that and then I'm cured, or I use AI for that and my problem is solved. We need to start with, we need to be more critical thinkers and use our leadership to really get past by the fads. Cloud was a fad at a certain point. It's not anymore, but it was for a little bit, right? But understand the customer, start with the customer, get past the easy solutions for everything. Oh, if I have these 3 tools, then I don't need engineers. That's not always the case. That's maybe never the case. But understand the problem that you're trying to solve. Look at your toolbox with critical thinking, not with just this is the one that everybody says that solves everything, because sometimes it's not. And focus on developing your teams to be adaptable. Things are changing too fast today, and whatever was working yesterday may not be working today. So we have to be adaptable. In technology, there is no top of the mountain. There is just another peak that you have to conquer.
Yeah, you describe it really very concisely, and starting with the customer, using critical thinking, galvanizing teams, making sure you have the right resources, galvanizing teams, making sure that functions are aligned throughout the organization. These things don't change. And regardless of what new fad or tool or methodology that might come to play that might facilitate various aspects of working together, it's still the principles of understanding the why, understanding the customer, and then organizing to to effectively deliver those solutions to the customer. Those things are just time immemorial. It continues to be a constant in our lives. So Rose, I wanted to thank you very much for sharing your valuable insights with us today. I think your perspective on customer-centric development, feedback loops, and driving efficiency is incredibly important. And I just also wanted to reach out to our listeners today, hoping you enjoyed this episode of Software Without Borders. If you're interested in learning more about technology leadership, product development, strategies for success in software development, a little bit more about Rose, be sure to subscribe to our show and leave a 5-star rating if you feel it's warranted on your favorite podcasting platform. So, Rose, thank you again very much. It was a delight to speak with you.